Jennifer, did we not appoint a committee on how to implement the primary and what to do with those? And that committee comes back and reports to us in December? Is that not correct?
I believe it was for January, or I actually don't remember off the top of my head if there was a specific date. I know it was discussed. I don't remember if it was adopted. Okay, Alice, they're saying by the end of the year we're supposed to report back. Okay. So, yes, it sounds like that is correct. And I am the chair of that committee. Yeah. And I can go ahead and tell you what I've been doing so far.
I'm concerned that we got someone that's looking at the rules on how to implement a primary without them causing all kind of construction of keeping us from doing it.
Okay, so this is what I've done so far. I sent an email to the Secretary of State, and I told him that on June 8th, he already knew, of course, he tweeted about it, but I just sent it in a formal document that the body voted overwhelmingly to close the Republican primary, and I asked him to do so in a respectful and expeditious manner. And he shortly came back a few days later and said, did I have the authority? To which I replied, well, if you look at Article 1, Section 1, Subsection B, yes, the final authority in all party matters is the biennial convention of the Republican Party of Arkansas. So as the chair, yes, I believe I have authority there. 2, I was the elected chairman of the committee charged with overseeing the closing of the primaries on behalf of the convention. So yes, I would say that I have the authority to speak to you and notify you that, in fact, the Republican primaries are closed. And then I sent him some law to also back up that the party, because it's also in state law, that the party decides who votes in their primaries. So no matter how you look at it, no matter how you slice it, the party has the ultimate authority on this issue. So I sent that to him, followed up with him, and I will tell you, Robert Steinbuck's article is correct because I let him see all my emails. So then followed up and said, do you need anything else? And he said, no, we're processing it. I ended up calling his office on a completely separate matter, but I guess the individual that I spoke to was so used to, at that point, speaking about closing the primaries that he gave me his closed primary spiel. I just listened because I'm like, oh, I'm kind of curious what they're saying, so I just listened. And then at the end, I asked a few questions, and that's when he said, well, the Secretary of State has met with the AG's office and members of he said a few interesting things. I think I said this on the radio, so I apologize if I'm repeating things you already know, but he said they met, he said, and they met because we need to know if the RPA if the Republican Party really wants to do this. And I said, well, why would you think they don't want to do this? He goes, oh, well, I don't know, I probably spoke out of turn, and I didn't mean that. So I was like, okay, that's still an interesting thing to say. And then he said that the AG and the Secretary of State's office do agree that there needs to be additional legislation, as I said earlier, not about whether or not the party can do it, but just to provide guidance to the counties. And I said, well, why wouldn't you let the state election commissioners do that? That is their role. And he said, that's above my pay grade. So I said, okay, well, thank you, but this actually isn't why I'm calling, but I appreciate the information. I'm calling for this issue. And so got that. Now, to that point, though, the reason why I was calling the Secretary of State's office was because I wanted to make sure that the names of the electors had been sent into their office as required by law. So they had been. So this goes to a point that we spoke about earlier. So I have a certified copy of the names of the electors that we elected at the convention. If in fact nothing goes into effect, as the RPA is trying to argue, that nothing goes into effect until we adjourn, then they could not have submitted those names to the Secretary of State as final. So again, no matter how you slice it, none of this, it doesn't hold water. It's just intended to confuse and delay, and please don't fall for it. Okay. Now, another thing.